Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name is Stephen Clark and I'm joined as always with my co-host Nick Ponte. How you doing, Nick?
Yo, what's happening, dude? Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah, our energy's buzzing because our guest on today's podcast has got an infectious energy, isn't she? She's phenomenal. So today we had on Kristina Castillina. She's called the Good Life Property Investor on Instagram. She's what a story! What a great energy, great personality. And she shares all, doesn't she?
I love this chat because I just felt that she was telling everything from the heart, because she was very, just the personality, like you say, she was just so entertaining as well. And I think that's one of the things that stood out to me, because she's had a number of opportunities that have came to her through either joint venture investors who started out with her, or else angel financing, this kind of like angel investor money. And I thought, why is it she's getting all these opportunities? And I think one of the big things is probably her personality, and that the fact that she's so outgoing. And you could imagine if she goes to a networking event, she's not going to be the one that's just hiding in the corner. She's going to be getting around there, talking to people. And I think that is what people need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. When you touched on it as well, she shares everything, what's and all. She didn't sugarcoat nothing to sell. So she shared her story in depth, and it didn't all go smoothly. She's built up a phenomenal portfolio, a foundation of buy-to-lets, now service accommodation units, big blocks. She's got a 10-bed service accommodation unit she's putting through the conveyance at the moment. So she's got a phenomenal story, but it wasn't all plain sailing, and she quite openly shares it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great interview, and hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know any feedback, and we'll just cut to the interview with Kristina.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. Kristina Castillina. And you'd muck up your last name. I'm going to have to go and do it again.
Castillina.
And Nick won't edit it, so he'll make me look like a right twat on the podcast.
Keep it rolling, mate. Don't worry, we'll tag to your Instagram anyway, so people will be able to find you regardless of what your name is.
That handle is the Good Life Property Investor.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Scottish Property Podcast.
It's a pleasure.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. I'm enjoying my brew. Enjoying the peace and quiet of having children at nursery, and I can just have an adult conversation. So I'm living my best life, to be honest.
I think this is the first time that me and Nick have been referred to as adults in a conversation.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how the conversation.
We'll see this one goes. So you've actually got a tie to Scotland, which we just discovered having a chat before we kicked off there. You were born and raised up in Aviemore, was it? Or?
No, so I was born in Birmingham, and then when I was about 11, we moved up to Aviemore and lived there until I was just maybe 14, so a good few years. Yeah.
Nice. So you might not need the subtitles for today.
Well, no, hopefully not. I could, and I even had like a really slight Scottish accent as well at the time. I mean, that's gone now.
See, coming on the Scottish Property Podcast, it's like playing for the Scottish national team. As long as you've got some sort of connection to Scotland, like a long-lost granny or uncle or something like that, then you can get on.
That's it. No, I used to live there, so that's quite a big connection.
Yeah. So we usually start with most guests. Can you take us back to the start of your what you did before property, and what kind of gave you the inclination to start in property, and where it started for you?
Yeah, so I actually used to be a professional singer. And dancer. So when I was 16, instead of going to do A-levels, I just went straight to like a musical theatre college and trained there, and then just went out and worked in shows. Basically, I loved it. That's what I wanted to do. So property and business was never on the radar for me at all. So I think I loved obviously being a performer. It had my absolute sole focus. And then things started to change for me when I got to about probably 23, 24. I moved down to London. That gives everyone a kick up the arse when you move to London. Moved to London, and I was working as a singer. I was in a band, like a original band. I was solo gigging to earn money, because you don't actually get paid in like original bands. You actually have to pay the venue to gig, which is mental. That's like the opposite of like what you'd expect. So I would gig on my own. I'd rehearse in the day. I was working with a producer. I was teaching Zumba, set up a Zumba company, but I was a bit too late to the party. So by the time I started teaching Zumba, every venue in London already was doing it. But anyway, I started teaching Zumba. I was selling shots. The nights I wasn't singing, I was selling shots, which I cannot even begin to put in words how much I hated. And there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you enjoy it, but I just did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy selling shots.
Sorry, what were you selling?
Selling shots, a shot.
I saw that on your Instagram actually recently, where you were actually the nightclub that you used to sell the shots in. That was quite funny.
Yeah, selling shots in London, in like Leicester Square. I used to sell shots, and I'd have to get the night bus home at like 3 o'clock in the morning with all the drunks.
Like shots of tequila or something like that?
Yeah, Jager bombs. I used to sell Jager bombs.
Oh, right, okay.
It's like an old man. He's not used to this.
Oh, come on.
Last time I did shots, it was like aftershocks. You used to drink.
That's going back, isn't it? Yeah, well, there's a thing now called Jager bombs. That's what I was selling.
Right.
So what I'm trying to get over is basically I was working my arse off, really trying everything, and I had no money. And it was the first time that money was an issue. I really felt that burn inside where I was like, I actually hate this, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what else I can do, because I was working so hard. And I had all these dreams and this, I wanted to accomplish something with my life. So at that point, a friend from college approached me about a network marketing business. So this is, 10 years ago. This is before network marketing gets a bad rap anyway, but this is before anyone really knew what it was. And it was a company called Arbonne. And I was so green, I can't tell you, literally hanging on every word she said. So I said yes, and that was really like a pivotal moment for me, just in terms of starting to understand passive income, because I didn't know it was a thing.
And network marketing is a good gateway into the personal development side of business and entrepreneurship and passive income.
Honestly, that's the best thing that ever happened to me because of the personal development. I just had no idea that these books existed. I didn't have a clue, until that point when she didn't, like dead old school, show me this presentation and explained, if you trade your time for money, you'll never have true wealth. You'll never have freedom, because you've got to work. There's only so many hours in a day, and everything she was saying, I was like, what? How has no one ever told me this? So that was like quite a pivotal moment, and I really it really jumped at it, and got obsessed with personal development, really.
Are you still involved with the Arbonne, with the network?
No, I've still, some of my best friends are, have done incredibly well from it and still have an amazing business. But no, I did really well. And then I'll tell you how I got into property, but there was like a moment where I realised I couldn't be a singer, do Arbonne and be a property investor and do everything really well. So I chose, and I was like, I'm going to do property. And from that moment, my property career really, really took off. I just think sometimes you spread yourself too thin, so I had to choose.
So see, like, before we get on to the property stuff, I'm intrigued with the network marketing and the Arbonne. There seems to be so many, like, Herbalife and this, that, and the next thing. And like, I don't know what it is, but I think because property, there's a lot of people in property that are in that kind of circle that do that as well, or that tried that first of all before getting into property. And I've been pitched a number of times over the years where people have invited me for coffees because I thought they wanted to be my friend, and then they start talking about this Arbonne thing. Do you know what I mean? And then I started looking into it, and I was almost getting convinced like that this was the route that I needed to go. And then I started, like, over the couple of years that I sort of followed these people, they started drifting off the radar, and then they started getting into other things. So is it, like, I don't really know much about it, but as far as I can see, it's only like a select few people that actually do really well. Is that fair to say, or is that wrong?
Yeah, no, I think, honestly, if you can make a success in network marketing, you can do anything, because I genuinely think it's one of the hardest You've got to. I think it's a certain type of person that can do it, because it is so much rejection, and I think you can be a machine. But I think for me, the most frustrating thing is when you're growing a team and you're trying to help them, and everyone's quitting. So you're surrounded by people continually quitting, and you've got to be able to just almost disengage with that and not let it bother you, not let it creep into your mindset. So it's a really tough gig, really tough gig. But some of my favourite people do incredibly well from network marketing because they've got the most incredible mindsets. They're like on another level.
Yeah.
And they're fun as well. They're really cool. Like there's some, yeah, they're really just fun, outgoing. They're brave. They put themselves out there. So I've got massive respect for the people that do it well, but ultimately it's not for most people, really.
And where was it from the Arbonne network marketing into then property? What was the shiny penny then to maybe switch?
Oh, you'll love this. So I went to a free Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar in Leeds, and I literally went so that I could poach people for Arbonne.
I'm surprised you didn't ask me for a coffee as well. I'm sure if you were still living in Aviemore, you would have.
I would have. I'd have reached out and said, "You've got all the skills I'm looking for." So yeah, I went dressed up like a businesswoman, thinking all the people in this room, they're going to be my type of people. I'm going to get them into Arbonne. And then I turned up and there was this like really crazy American bloke just talking about property. And again, hung on every word. And I think the most important thing he said to me was, you can buy property using other people's money. And again, I never heard that. Yeah, just like, what? You can, all these strategies, money in, money out, it's dead easy. And, just run to the back of the room and sign up for 997. And if you don't, you're a loser. So I was like, right, well, this is what you've got to do, apparently, to not be a loser. So off I went to the back. We paid £1,000. And the rest really is history, actually.
What age were you then?
25, 26.
What are you now? What age are you now?
I'm 35 now.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I was 26. In my mind, I didn't start, I think I started buying at 28, so I was maybe 27, 26, 27.
And run into the back of that room then? Oh, sorry, Steve, on you.
Ran in the back of the room, the credit card, and what was it, a day event, a couple of days? How was the training?
3 days, 3 days, yeah. In Leeds, training.
And was that a specific strategy that you intended on going down, that something you want to do in property, or was it just, let's just go and get as much whatever knowledge I can get?
Yeah, just totally sold to, thought this sounds like a great idea. I definitely understood that I knew nothing about property and I needed to learn about it. I got that immediately. I was only dead young and I was renting, so I didn't have a mortgage. So all of this stuff was so new to me. But I got it. It was like a sponge. I really got it. So then I went on the 3-day training and I loved it and I didn't sleep. It was like one of those moments I'll never forget where I really just had this feeling of like, this is for me. This is 100% what I want to do. And again, it was another massive upsell. So it was like, spend £1,000, come to this 3-day and then spend 20 grand on like the full package.
Like that pause there after the 20 grand.
So yeah, I just fell off my chair there. wait till I get up.
Honestly.
Did you go for it?
Yeah. So, oh God, I was in a position where I was renting and I'd saved up. Because at that point I'd moved back to Blackpool and all my connections in Blackpool. I could work 10 gigs a night, 7 nights a week in Blackpool. So at that point, I'd moved back from London, I was back in Blackpool, and I was like saving quite well. I've always been quite good with money. So saving, and I'd saved enough. I'd got like maybe 15 grand together, which I was going to use to buy my first home. And instead, I used it to pay for training. So, and all the packages as well were for like couples. So it was like 20 grand for 2 of you. And I was like, well, I'm just on my own. Like I don't have anyone to do it with. So I think I paid like 18 grand.
Okay, so I think we should stop right here and dive into that a little bit, because like you have obviously come a long way since then, right? But going back to sort of that, maybe slightly naive person sitting in that room where you ran to the back of the room, you didn't really know much about the property, but you were really hooked into the guy who was standing there telling you that you could live an amazing life from property. Have you got, now knowing what you know in property, have you got any issues with these kind of training courses where they're kind of selling the dream and it's costing so much money to get involved? Or are you quite happy that you did that back then?
Well, I'm really happy I did back then, because at the time there wasn't anything else. There was only a handful of property companies at the time. So there wasn't, I mean, it's a different world now. There's so much competition. There's online training. You can get it cheap. It's so much more accessible. But I wasn't aware really of anywhere else I could learn that. And I learn best in an environment, a classroom environment with a live speaker where I'm with other humans. I don't learn that great from like reading blogs. And also, people are nutcases. If I was just to try and learn off YouTube, learning off anyone really. So no, I wouldn't change anything just because it was the right thing at the time. Whereas if I was starting again now, I wouldn't do that because it's outdated. You don't need to spend that money now. But certainly back then, I got a mentor as well. I got 3 days with Danny Inman. He came up to Blackpool and like we did my first deals there, and I've done well from it. So I wouldn't change it. And I'm glad that I was green, and I'm glad that they lied to me a little bit, because if they'd have said, it's going to be really hard and, you might get downvalued and actually this will happen, and I wouldn't have gone for it. So I'm glad they told me it was easy, because I went into it thinking it was going to be easy. And then when things started to get a little bit more difficult, I was already too far in.
Yeah, you build the resilience. Do you think spending that kind of money gave you the push to go, that I can't fail at this because I've already spent?
Oh my God, yeah, 100%. It was a done deal in my mind. I was willing
if you'd got free content from YouTube or something online, or a free course, it wouldn't have gave you the as kick up the arse to go, I need to make this work because I'm in on it now.
Yep, definitely. I really embraced it. Yeah.
And so right at the back of the training, what was the strategies that you wanted to implement in your business? What was the kind of route you wanted to go down? I'm assuming it changed, as it always does for everyone.
So my strategy was cash flow. Well, actually, I wanted to focus mainly on cash flow and the odd flip, just for a bit of capital. But I just went wild in my area in Blackpool. In my investment area, it worked quite well, and I started putting out leaflet campaigns really early on. I was doing direct to vendor marketing, and the first 2 deals I did came from a landlord selling up, and it wasn't actually the strategy that I was going for, but it's the strategy he bought me. So it was like a licensed 6-bed HMO, and then like a block of 5 flats, but it's not a block, it's just one of those massive 4-story converted terraced houses that had five flats inside. So he bought those to me off market, and then I just thought, I'll have a bit of that. So it wasn't as though it was like a set, I'm going to go after this. They were just the first 2 that landed in my lap, and because I was so scared, I negotiated them down so cheap. I got them both for 79 grand each.
Wow.
How was that?
And I'm assuming that was the easy part in finding the money, because you've done the good job at negotiating these off market and down at a good price.
Well, this is it. And then so at that point I had no investors. I didn't know how I was going to raise that money. So I think that's why I just kept negotiating him down, because I was thinking, I haven't got the money. I'm just going to have to keep saying the stuff wrong with it till we just get so cheap. And then, so the same company put on a gala in London, and I wasn't going to go actually, because it got again, I don't know why all these things have to cost so much money, but at the time it was so much for me. It was like 250 quid a ticket, and I'd have to then pay for my train ticket to London, accommodation. But not only that, I would lose my income singing on a Saturday night. That was my main, I could earn 300 quid on a Saturday night, so I'd be not earning that but then spending, so I wasn't going to go. And then someone said to me, no, you've got to think bigger. You have to go because you don't know who you're going to meet. So turned up, I had quite a few Prosecco's, and I'm gob on a stick going round to everyone with my business card saying, I'm from Blackpool, I've got amazing deals, honestly. And then you couldn't write it. And then this guy phoned me the next day, quite a posh guy. And he said, lovely speaking to you last night. Do you really have deals? And I said, I do, yeah. And he said, could you send them over? Because I'm interested in joint venturing. And I said, yeah. I'll put a proposal together. So that evening, I sent both deals over to him. He replied instantly saying, wow, they're corkers. Like, do you want a JV? And that was the start of it.
Right. And so did he fund the full purchase price renovation of these first couple of deals?
He funded everything. I did my first 5 deals with him.
And did you do any due diligence? Like, did you do any checks on him or due diligence, or did you just kind of take him at face value just because he had a posh accent? Did you just think he had loads of money?
Honestly, gosh, the things that when you say it out loud, like I would never do that now, obviously. But I think I was just so keen, and also I think my mindset at the time was 50% of something is better than 50% of nothing, because I had nothing to lose.
So what was the structure? Just what was the kind of JV setup then?
So he had a limited company. Everything was bought through his limited company with his own cash. He funded everything, and then the cash flow was split between us 50-50.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do? Just source the deal, and did you have to manage the refurb or anything like that?
Yeah. So I dealt with like so I'd find the deals, work with the builders, then outsource to the letting agent. And so I was like, because he wasn't even in the area, so I was really the person that dealt with any issues and, you know, worked with the builders and stuff.
And how many deals did you do? How many properties did you buy with him?
We did 5. So we did maybe it was 6 actually.
Buy-to-lets?
No, HMOs. We did 4 HMOs back to back. Obviously, the block of flats. We did and then we did a flip as well.
Nice, yeah. So it must have given you instant cash flow quite quickly by working with this one investor.
Yeah, it was quite satisfying, and he was keen for more.
So see that opportunity there, right? So, because everybody's like, how do I find the money? How do I find these people to invest with me and all that? How do you think that particular opportunity came about to you eventually, and not the other, whatever it was, 100 people in the room? How do you think it was you that he picked? Why?
Because I spoke to him, and I guess I was maybe just memorable. Yeah, that quite like outgoing and quite. I think I just get to the point quite quickly. So I think a lot of people skirt around it. And I think I literally was just going like, I've got really good deals. I think I was just going around dead excited. I think excitement as well.
I love that energy and that positivity around it, because people do put so many barriers and blocks in the way. Like, I can't find the deals. I can't find the money. I can't find this, can't find that. You've gone, no, I'm still reading it. I went and found the deal. I didn't have the money, so I negotiated it down so low. And then I went on a train to London and just started telling everyone at a networking event that I've got deals. So it's like, you didn't put these barriers in front of you that most people will put in place. Do you know what I mean? You believed it in the process and believed in what you had learned and just actioned it.
I mean, I was crapping myself. Can I say that? Like, I was, at night, I had the low levels of anxiety, but still, did it anyway. I think that's because I think there's like a misconception where people think, oh, well, you just must not have fear or you must not have barriers. But I did, but I just did it anyway.
What sort of things go through your heads when you are working with other people's money? What sort of fears go through your heads? Like,
to the obvious, like, what if it doesn't value up? What if, what if I've got the numbers totally wrong? Which is obviously the biggest one, especially when you're starting out and you've not done a deal from start to finish. What if I've got everything wrong and, just it doesn't work? We never get a tenant, it never sells. The flip, what if it never sells? Those types of things.
I'm assuming this gave you so much confidence doing, meeting this first investor and doing this deal, but him funding it and you project managing the renovations, you probably learned so much on these first properties as well. Did that give you so much confidence going forward? And I'm assuming that it was just a joint venture for those one deals.
No, not really. What ended up happening is I then, because I'd worked so much with him, had no confidence on my own. It was like a crutch almost. And also had nightmares with builders, absolute nightmares. I got to the point actually where I hated property. I hated it. I wanted to literally give them all back and say, I don't want to do this. I hated HMOs. In fact, I would never buy a HMO if you gave it me for free, to be honest with you.
Because of the bad experience with the builders and the refurbs?
I mean, looking back, it was a combination really of not a great area for HMOs, a really moany letting agent that is quite negative and doesn't really like people, and she would pass all the problems directly onto me, and I would just get to the point where I wouldn't want to open my emails because she would pass all the little niggly so-and-so's, lost the plot and he's decided to sellotape the fridge together and now everyone's kicking off because he's putting labels on everyone's cupboards. Or, in our HMOs we had stuff like people would get pregnant and she's like, oh, they're having a baby together, and all right, and then it's just, oh, so-and-so's hanging a washing out of the window onto the road and the neighbours are kicking, just low-level stuff I don't need to know about, but she would tell me.
I was going to say, why does she feel the need that you get involved with people's sex life?
I don't need to know about it, but she'd tell me. And the one thing that they definitely don't teach you on the courses is the voids and the maintenance and the turnover. The turnover of tenants found was just...
So I'm intrigued now because it started off sounding great with this guy, with him funding everything and building up this portfolio of 5 properties. But how has that kind of turned out now? Are you still in a partnership together? Are you still getting cash flow from those properties, or?
No. So I love him and we've got a great relationship. But I said to him in the end, I just said, because what was happening is there actually wasn't enough cash flow to go between two. And he'd refinanced, he'd got a lot of money back out, but I was still running around like a blue arse fly. So in the end, I just said, I felt really, my mindset with it was, I felt really heavy. I felt like I didn't want to find any more deals because I just didn't want more stress. So I just got to a point where I was like, actually, keep the money and keep them, and we agreed a buyout. So he bought me out of the properties, and I believe he still actually has them all, and there's enough in it for one person, but he wasn't doing anything for me really.
So you had a sort of reset moment then. So you were like, right, this is not what I signed up for when I gave him my 20 grand. So you're like, there's got to be a better way, an easier way. So what was your...
Definitely. So it was like a huge relief, but it was also like, right, we're going to the beginning, we're going back to nothing. But then I'd lost that sort of green, everything's going to be amazing mindset, and just sort of thought, I had a lot of fear then, actually. I had a lot of fear, a lot of self-doubt. I'd had quite a few run-ins with builders. So I was just, quite vulnerable, really. And at that point, so do you know Danny Inman?
Yes, I've seen him on Instagram and that. Don't know him personally, but we know who he is.
Yeah, so he was my mentor.
Actually, see, while we're on this Danny Inman topic, I'm sure we've tried to reach out to him to come on the podcast. So Danny, if you're listening, get on the Scottish Property Podcast.
I'll send you a message. He's a really good friend of mine, and it was perfect timing actually, because up until that point, he'd only done like mentorships with through the company, and then he decided, I can't remember how it all happened, but he decided to just offer coaching to a few people, and he messaged me and he said, "Do you want a bit of help?" And I said, "Yeah." And then the first time we got together, I think I literally sat and cried. I just cried. I just said, I feel dead lonely. I'm really lonely. I feel like, builders see me and just think, who's this young idiot? This young girl doesn't know what she's talking about. And I said, and not only that, I'm starting from scratch again, but I've got all these wounds and just, I don't know if I can do this. And he doesn't, he doesn't know what to do with that. He's not very good with crying, Danny. So he's just a bit like, oh God, well, you're really good at finding deals, aren't you? And to be fair, I'm really good at finding deals. That is one thing I can sniff out is a good deal. So we just had to build myself up really. And I just went with tiny buy-to-lets, teeny tiny ones. Like my first one, same idea, we're working with private investors and buying everything in my own name for myself, no one else involved other than them just funding the deal. And I bought a 1-bed flat for 35 grand, and it was just tiny numbers, 35 grand, 10 grand refurb, refinance at 60. And it worked, and that was my level. That's what my comfort level of. I couldn't really go bigger than that to begin with, so I did that. It worked. I got my money out, and then met Phil, who's the builder that I've worked with now on the last. God, we've done 20 odd projects together, and in fact more because we've sourced lots to him as well. But he was the handyman that would go round and fix all the work of the builders that had got it wrong. He would go around all the properties and sort out all the issues. And then I said to the letting agent, do you think Phil can do full refurbs? And she said, I don't know, like ask him. And so it was quite new for him to take on a full refurb, and it was quite, all buying on me was quite new for me. And I'd found this again, this deal, absolute stonker of a deal, this. It was a 3-story, 5-bed property on a really nice road. And I'd negotiate, I think it was on the market for 110, and it sat there. And those were the days when properties actually sat on the market, when people didn't. What a time to be alive. It sat there one time, it went to 100, and then winter came and the damp came in, and it just it was overwhelming, I think, for most people because of the size of it. But because I'd done HMOs of 8 beds and 6 beds, I wasn't daunted by the size of it. I just needed a builder I could trust, really. So I negotiated that down. I think I got it for like 67 in the end. Oh, absolute steal. And Phil came on, and it was the first one we did together. And he knew how wounded I was by builders. So I was really standoffish with him. I didn't want to be friends with him. I just wanted everything to be like strictly business. And he did an absolutely fantastic job. And at the end, he was like, what do you think? And he was like watching me and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's good. And he went, can I give you a hug? He's much older than me. He's like a father figure. He said, can I give you a hug? And I went, yeah, all right. And he went, I've been wanting to do this since we first met. And I was like, oh, he's a proper amiable, like real, like people person, real caring and stuff. So I was like, found the version of me that's a builder, which is ideal.
That's so cool, because like it sounds like at that point where you were crying on Danny Inman's shoulders, it sounded like you just wanted to give up. So when things started to come together and it all started to fall into place, that must have been just a life-changing moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I never would have quit because I had goals, and property was really the only vehicle I could see.
What is the goal? Like, while you're on that, what are your goals?
Well, what it was then was I wanted to earn 2.5 grand a month passively. That was the goal, because that replaced my singing income. So it was actually really simple. But when I looked at what I needed to do, if I was just doing it through buy-to-let, it felt a lot, because that's, over 10. To get to that it felt like a big climb. But I think the turning point for me was finding a strategy, keeping it simple, and building my, investor database. I was really good at finding deals, and I literally did that over and over and over again. I just did that, and I bought 10, 11, 12, and I just kept buying buy-to-let until I reached my financial freedom figure. And at that point, I'd built, obviously, I think a lot of confidence comes, doesn't it? That's when I started to feel confident, because I'd done what I wanted to do. And then obviously the vision got bigger.
Mm-hmm. So what was the turning point when you started to think bigger, and what was the plan for the business to grow to the next level?
I think, I think when you just start seeing money coming in, you start having belief for the business model. And I started to have belief in property when, I actually...
And yourself, I'm assuming as well, like believing in yourself, that you started back from these 35 grand deals back up to bigger projects. You've got your building team and team around you now, so you have more confidence in yourself and your ability, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and also I trust, I've got trust in people. I trust Phil. I don't work with that letting agent anymore. I make sure that I work with positive people that match my energy, or, I've realised that there's no point in working with people that drain you or that make you feel a certain way, make you feel negative. I just don't entertain it. So I think life in business is easier when you're working with people that you like. It's much more fun.
Yeah, we do this for a reason. We do this because we want to create the life that we desire, not to create another job for ourselves that feels draining. And we make that, at the end of the day, as business owners, we make the choice of who we want to work with, if it's joint venture partners or letting agents or the people we've got around us. We choose. So I love that. I think it's a really, really good point, actually.
Yeah.
Can you give our listeners a bit of context then, where you're at, today, and like how you built your portfolio? What sort of numbers are you?
Of course, yes. I literally stayed on track, on lane. I did not buy a thing other than buy-to-lets and the odd flip until I'd reached my £2,500 a month. Just didn't look at it. Shiny penny, just didn't entertain it. Then once I got there, I was like, do you know what? Now I felt secure then, because I was like, my bills are paid. So now I can have a bit of fun with it. So then from there, I started to get into like a little bit of like mixed commercial. So I bought the first thing that I bought that was a little bit more sexy was on the main high street. It was a mini mart supermarket, but the owner, so it was a supermarket with 2 flats above, and the owner owned the whole thing, and he was retiring. So it meant when he sold up the supermarket, he was going to be just a vacant shop. So from there, I actually sold the shop to an amazing hairdresser. He cuts my hair, David, he's incredible. So I sold the shop, renovated the 2 flats, and the flats are SA. So they were my first 2 SA. And then a place called Cleveley's. It's like it's a holiday destination. It's outside of Blackpool. It's quite quiet, where like families go, full of old people, really. There's the seafront is just beautiful. And that's where I'm from. That's where we moved to after Scotland. And it's got a whole lot of memories. The front just holds so many memories for me. So it's like, not an emotional buy because the numbers add up, but I viewed a property, like a six holiday apartments. When I viewed them, actually, I was viewing them with the mindset of, can I get planning, or can I convert them and use them as just residential flats? And this is before SA became such a buzzword and everyone realised the income involved. I was just viewing this, this big building in my mind with rundown, decrepit, flats that needed a bit of renovation. So I met the owners, and they started telling me the revenue they were actually earning, only being open, I think, 9 months out of the year. And it was a totally different angle, and it was a real tourism thing and a hospitality. And I thought, my God, why would I turn these into residential? Why would I turn them into buy-to-lets when they've already got an established business with a client base? Everything was really old school with them. So everything was like pad and pen diary. They weren't on Airbnb, they weren't online. Everything was like, they'd get a phone call, they'd book someone in, they'd take the cash. So I could see a way of really like modernising and bringing it up to date. So that's called Highcliff. And we bought the block full angel finance, renovated the whole lot, and that has been running a dream. I think Highcliff has been a massive turning point, because Highcliff I think,
I'm intrigued to hear the mindset, because like you've went from like to go from that commercial with the 2 flats, so obviously the little step up to then this big block of 6 SA units. How did you feel going from this significant jump up? I'm assuming a significant jump up in invested finance, risk associated with that. You didn't really know the model too well. What pushed you to do that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I just had a feeling, and the numbers worked. I knew that it would cash flow. I just thought, how can I make this a success? And then, oh gosh, and the timing really couldn't have been worse, because by the time it completed,
and we're talking here, what sort of year? Recently.
When did lockdown happen? 2020, so 2019. So we completed November 2019 on Highcliff. My builder started work on it In the January, he has a heart attack and has a quadruple heart bypass.
Whoa.
So we bring in another builder, and then lockdown happens. And then I have my second baby, which obviously, when we agreed the sale, I wasn't pregnant.
All right, okay.
So
That changes the dynamics of a deal.
in this time, I've got pregnant and had a baby, and we're in lockdown, and my builder's out of action. We've got another builder in, and it ended up working that when they actually lifted the restrictions back in 2020, God, it's mad, isn't it? When you think, you're like, the years, you've just, where have they gone? When they first lifted the restrictions in 2020, in the August time, when they started doing all the eat out to help out and all that stuff, Highcliff was just getting finished in the refurb, and it was about July, because I know Evan was weeks old. He was about 3 weeks old, and with the Highcliff's an hour and a half from where we live, and I literally drove there and back with the baby, and my husband took a bit of time off work, and to furnish, it takes so long, doesn't it? Crikey, to do all 6, my God. I ran myself into the ground, getting it up and running to open for those few months before we went back in lockdown.
Wow.
How did you structure that with private finance? Did you borrow private finance to fund the whole building? Did they secure on it? Were they looking for an immediate cash flow, obviously, and you couldn't give them cash flow from it for some time?
Yeah, so we had a private investor finance the whole deal. Got a first charge. It was arranged to be a year, but obviously it went over a year. They were quite cool about it, to be honest. I think the way it worked is we just had to give them the interest. Once it rolled over a year, we had to just give them the interest owed for that year. And then they were happy to take I think we went over maybe 3 or 4 months into the next.
I'm always interested how you find the investors. This particular one, how did this one come about? Is it a family or friend or?
No, so do you know what? That's the one thing I haven't ever struggled with, is raising finance. I've got some absolute corker investors. And you know, the funny thing is none of them really are friends and family.
Right. That's great.
This particular one, they're actually funding one that I've got going through, which is another step up. The one that I've got going through at the moment is a 10-bed detached. Massive. And again, they're funding that. So the story with this is, they're a company. They owned a massive hotel in Blackpool, and the particular person remembers me. I used to sing there.
All right.
Yeah, and it all came about. So bizarre how life happens. I was selling a flip. They bought the flip off me, and I had another flip that I was doing in the same area. And I just had an idea of, well, if they've bought that, maybe they'll want to buy this other flip. So I found their details on Company's House, and I wrote them a letter, and I just said, hi, you bought the flip from me. I've got another one 2 streets down. Same builder, same thing, because they were just buying my flips to rent out. So I said,
Right.
oh, this is a bit of a model. So they bought that one, and I said, shall we go for a coffee? And when I went for a coffee, I sort of pitched it, because I worked out the return they were getting on those flips they were buying. I could give them more as a private investor. So I sort of already had that, but I didn't know how open they would be to it. So I just sort of mentioned it. And I said, I work with private investors, like all of my deals, really. I'm working with private investors, and I give them interest. And then when I got Highcliff, I just sent them a message, and I said, can we have a coffee? And I literally pitched Highcliff to them.
That's
And
great.
I'm so nervous.
You had that track record with Highcliff to now go into this next one. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, obviously, you know, staycations and holiday lets seem to boom, you know, like last year, because obviously travel restrictions and all the rest of it. Some people are a bit worried that things are going to start like falling off a little bit with this sort of self-catering, you know, British accommodation and stuff like that. How have you found it with your bookings so far coming into this year? So
I definitely agree with that. I think that people, it's typical shiny penny, you know, it's the strategy of the moment, the strategy of the year, isn't it? Everyone's having a go. I think I was always quite mindful that when I was doing this strategy, that I'm doing it for holiday makers in a holiday destination. So I think that there's some people that are doing it with a random terrace house on a random street and not really knowing who their audience is and just sort of hoping for the best. And I think that is working now, and it will work. And there's contractors, and there is definitely out, there is a place for that. But I think as competition gets more and more fierce, which it is, I think the random terraced house strategy might not work as well in the future. But I've definitely noticed more competition. All of my essay units are, I think everyone's getting better at it actually, but from this beginning, I wanted them to stand out by being colourful and bright and having that holiday feel to them. And certainly with Empress Hall, the one that's going through at the moment, the 10 bed, the reason why I'm buying that is because it's different. I'm buying a 10 bed because there's very little competition. So I'm very aware of the fact that you've got to be on it constantly seeing, because they're popping up absolutely everywhere. They really are. So yeah.
What sort of accommodation is it then? Like, I mean, is it like a self-contained like unit with kitchen and that sort of thing, or what sort of?
Which one, Empress Hall?
Well, it's just, have you got? Are they quite different then? Are they these two buildings that you've built when you've split them up? What can I call
self-catering? So they're just flats really, but they're just they're bright, they're colourful, they're fun.
Yeah.
They've got that same sort of feel to them, and everything's branded as well. Not me, the management company that manage them. Everything's branded: tea, coffee, shower gels, all of that. So it's very, very professional.
Is it targeted mainly like couples, like going away for
couples? Yeah, because they're all like 1-2 beds, so they're for couples and families really. Whereas Empress Hall, it sleeps over 20, so that's going to be.
Oh right, that's what you're not subdividing that. That's
no. That's a beast. That's literally going to sleep. That's going to be for birthday parties, celebrations, families coming together. Especially after COVID. So that's one thing I noticed actually. So obviously, myself and my husband, we've got 2 kids. He's got 2 sisters. They've got 2 kids each. Mum and dad. When you're actually looking to go away, if there's 10 or 15 of you, things get booked up really quick. If you start looking for Christmas, and it's expensive, it's not broken between a lot of you, but they're getting a premium. So I think that's definitely a market that will be there, because people have kids and big families, and you need those bedrooms if you want to go on holiday together. I think that's an experience.
I completely agree, because I tried to look for something for my mum's 60th just before COVID, and it was the same thing. Like you try and get somewhere that sleeps like 15, 20 people, and it's hard to get snapped up. So there's obviously either a demand for it, or there's not enough supply for it, one of the two. But I think you're absolutely right. So the question I was going to ask there was, is that an important part for you to diversify the portfolio, not just go single lets or standard essays, but then go for bespoke houses? So if one market's flying, the other one's a bit.
Definitely, yeah. I'm all about diversifying, because I'm quite security driven, really. So yeah, I think that gives me a bit of peace of mind, knowing that, that if that's getting a bit saturated over here, maybe it's not working as well as it used to, but actually that's fine because it's evening out because this one's flying. I just think it's nice to have a.
As the last couple of years during COVID kind of made that more apparent to you, like give you the kind of clearer focus for that, because obviously no one could have predicted that, and different strategies would have suffered, and strategies have flourished through it as well. So it's probably nice to have that bit of diversification.
Yeah. And the buy-to-lets have just been, little workers have just been amazing all the way through everything. They've just carried on pumping out the money, and that's been amazing.
So give us a wee kind of typical day in the life of yourself now then. How's obviously you've got quite a lot going on. You've got 2 young kids. What's your kind of typical day now?
So I wake up at about 5:30, not because I want to, because that's when Evan wakes up, and then you try and squeeze an extra hour in bed out of him desperately.
Chuck him the iPad.
Honestly, I would love to say I jump up at 5:30 and I do my miracle morning.
Meditation.
I'm not in that stage of my life with 2 young kids. I'm really not. I am in pure survival mode, to be honest with you. I wake up in a terrible mood because I'm tired. This is my alarm clock. It screams. Like, it just goes from nothing to absolute screaming. So I'm like, oh God.
What age are your kids?
So I've got Evans turning 2 next month and Grayson's just turned 4.
Right.
So I wake up in a terrible mood. I go and get him from his cot, try and get him to sleep with me in bed, and he won't. He's kicking, but I just try and sleep through it. And then eventually I have to just acknowledge the fact that no one's going to get any sleep. So I'll get up about 6, half 6, sort the kids out. The boys go to nursery 3 times a week. So ship them off for 8 o'clock. On the days they're at nursery. Then I have a day with them on a Wednesday. My husband is part-time as well because of property, so he has a day with them on a Monday. And then I live quite a simple life. I go down to David Lloyd, try to do a class in the morning to get out of the way. I get a brew, sit with a nice coffee, live for the coffee, obviously, because I'm knackered. Have a coffee, sit and do some work. And then it really, do you not think property's a bit like dips and troughs? Sometimes I'm like, I'm living my best life. I've got all the I'm living my passive income. Then I have guilt then. Do you have guilt?
Yeah, absolutely.
About my passive income, have guilt that I'm not working hard enough, that I'm lazy. So I have all this guilt. And then I have other times where the shit hits the fan. So when Empress Hall completes, it's going to be absolutely nuts and I won't stop and it'll be up the wall. So it's dips and troughs. So at the moment, everything's quite chilled and quite nice. But I know that it's the calm before the storm. I've got another block as well going through at the moment. So that's 3 flats and a shop that's going through conveyancing, and that's a different area. I was going to do SA with those, but I'm just keeping my eye because they're 1 beds. A 1-bed, a studio and a 2-bed, and that's the saturated market. So I'm just sort of keeping an eye on what's actually happening. By the time I complete, I might just turn them into buy-to-lets.
How much of the sorry, Stephen,
I was going to say when you work out your numbers for your SA units, do you base it on the simple buy-to-let model first, how much money you want to pull back out, and if it works for buy-to-let, it could work for SA, and there's no risk in the SA.
Yeah, I look at my exits. I'll run everything as a buy-to-let and think, worst case scenario, would I be happy with a certain return on investment? Am I happy with money left in? Am I happy with cash flow? If that's yes, then I start getting a bit sexy with my numbers and start running numbers as SA. And it's a trade-off, really, of like, is it worth my time? Is it worth not stress, because I outsource. I've got an amazing managing agent, but it's thinking, a load of like checking the bookings and just the stress as winter comes and you're like, have we got any contractors coming in? And it's just a different low mental load as what you would get with a buy-to-let. So sometimes just look at the figures and go, is it worth it, or should I just, because they'll rent out 1 million times over as buy-to-lets. The rents are going up as well. Obviously property prices are going up, but the demand's huge.
Yes, we better watch our time. It's really been great talking to you. But one of the things I'm listening to you there describing your day to day, and of course, obviously, as we know, because we're all parents here, the struggles of that. I mean, that's the real work right there, bringing up kids. Do you know what I mean? Dealing with builders and all that. That can be challenging too. But I'm just thinking to myself, you seem to be just flying, and I'm just wondering how much I mean, it couldn't have all been plain sailing. There's got to be a lot of hard work put in along the way. How much of your success do you attribute to proper hard work and mistakes and along the way, or how much of it has just been like good timing in the market to be able to pick up these deals? And because I'm looking at now, and people listening to this now are like, well, that sounds great, she built up 10, 12 properties to replace her income. I'm going to go out and do that. But obviously, we know the market's quite challenging at the moment to find these deals. So do you think there has been a bit of good timing and luck as well, contributing to that journey?
I've worked my arse off, to be honest with you. Like, life now is, and I don't have the stamina. That's one thing I've realised since having the 2 kids. I feel if I had to do what I've done again, I would probably find it much harder because I'm knackered. Yeah. But then if I had to, if my back was against the wall, I would. But I mean, when I look back, there's times I've made myself ill. So I've worked so hard, I've made myself ill. So I wouldn't indulge.
That would be like, you know, sitting up till all hours with your eyes bleeding in front of a screen, looking at like Rightmove and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you know, there's the time where you have to work while you're building your portfolio, and there was times where, you know, I'd be singing and I wouldn't get in until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be up and out at viewings at 9, and then I'd come back and I'd do all my spreadsheets. And the thing with property that I'll probably never ever move past, because ultimately I'm a creative, I'm a singer, I'm a performer, is it stresses me out. And the stress on my little heart, I can't tell you, like the damage it does to your health. So I think I'm quite aware of that now. So even though it sounds like I'm flying, I can only take so much on, you know, otherwise I get overwhelmed. I just can't deal with it. So, you know, it sounds like I'm doing massive projects with Empress Hall, but actually that's just one project. So even though it's a big one, I'd rather now I've got all my buy-to-lets and I'm quite secure financially, I would rather just do one big project and focus on that and just have one remortgage to deal with and one set of legals than what I used to do, where, I mean, there were times where I literally had 4 or 5 deals on the go where I was like flipping and doing buy-to-lets and remortgages, and it was just constant paperwork and stress and valuations and, you know, overwhelm. And obviously I'm glad I've done it because it's got me to where I am now. And, you know, in the last however many years, I've done over 30 property deals. So it's come with a lot of, you know, that's active. I was very active, constantly in the market, viewing everything.
Did your health and fitness and well-being suffer a little bit in that time? Is that something you're now focusing on trying to get back now?
Definitely. Yeah, so that's why I'm a bit nicer to myself now. But it's hard because we live in a society that conditions us that, you know, you're not working hard enough and think bigger, and, you know, you think you're wealthy. Well, look at that over there. Why do you not want that? Why are you not going after the, you know? So it's hard to just stay in your lane and like sort of think, no, actually it's fine just to go down the gym and have a bit of time and sit with my brew and just chill and not be chasing every deal, because ultimately it will never be enough.
Yeah, no, I can completely relate to everything you're saying. The last few years has been absolutely mayhem, and I've pretty much taken this first quarter off, which is now turning into the second quarter, pretty much off this year. But Nick was just saying that to me before we came on the call about, you know, the next flip, and it just you do feel guilty, you do feel like you're taking the foot off the gas. But as I'm looking at my health conditioning definitely deteriorated. It's the worst shape I've ever been in, and, you know, I probably shouldn't share this, but I'll share it. We're going to Cyprus tomorrow for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and, you know, I made jokes in front of my family and friends when we were out getting married 10 years ago. My wife lets herself go; she broke the contract, and it's me that's done it, and so she's not letting me forget this. Now, like the last couple of months, she's like, you know what, like, I think it's you that's gone enough. And I'm like, yeah, the last couple of years was when that crazy in business that you've let yourself slip in other ways, and you can mentally push on, but you know that your health does suffer. But I'm looking at you, and I'm probably thinking about my small point of view, going, you know, it is short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, because you're going to get to bring up your kids and enjoy quality time with your kids and your family.
And you know when I worked the hardest, actually, when I was pregnant with my first, with Grayson, that's 5 years ago. So I was right in the midst of that momentum. I've never worked so hard in my life from when I was pregnant with him. Oh, hold on. So it was my software's trying to do something on me. There we go, to move up there. But I've never felt fear quite like it as well. So that to when I got pregnant, the fear of my life changing. So I had this timeline. I felt like a ticking time bomb. And I'm so glad I did work that hard, because it then allowed me that time with him.
Yeah, I'm related to everything you're saying, because when my daughter was born, we went through IVF for a number of years to try and have her. And the minute she was born, I was working in the oil and gas industry offshore, and in Africa. And the minute she was born, I was like, no shit. It was completely burn the bridges, go on my property, stop playing at this, and it's been mayhem. And all I had in my head for that 5-year period was, when she goes to school, I want to be able to walk her to school and pick her up. And I do that every day. But now this last few months, I've been feeling guilty that I'm doing it. I'm like, bloody hell, I'm picking her up every single day. I'm dropping her off. I'm like, well, it's just, I don't know. So you're constantly fighting that balance. One minute you've done all that work to get there. And then when you've done it, you're just like, oh shit.
Guilty, Phil. It's weird, isn't it? Aren't we annoying as humans?
Completely.
Oh, why? Yeah, my brain. I just want to turn it off and go, stop it. Stop being such a psycho.
So what's the plan for you for the next 5 years, would you think? Where would you like to take the business to? Would you like to grow it, maintain it?
Honestly, and I know this is like not the inspiring answer, but I really don't. I go between sort of, because I just focus on the ones ahead, and I know the cash flow, even from like Empress Hall, is going to be incredible. So I just sort of forecast what we've got there, and then, okay, so what's the next goal? So I look at everything in terms of cash flow, but there's going to be a point where actually the strategy's got to change, and it's going to be more, well, when are we going to start paying stuff down? And actually, sometimes I think, do we need any more? Do I want to keep just buying? How long am I going to keep buying houses for? Really? Because ultimately, they're all going to need refurbs in 10 years.
In 10 years' time, fill your time again.
All of those little bad boys are going to need new kitchens, new bathrooms. So I'm still sort of, I definitely don't want to do new builds. It's not my bag. I've got no desire for it. I don't want to do that. I do enjoy like the commercially shops and things. So sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to buy any more, and then it's addictive, isn't it? So, I mean,
it's like you say as well, like you've hit your monetary goals. So now when you're taking on projects, I'm assuming it's through a more excitement, something to get you up out of bed, something to get you excitement to do something a bit different.
Yeah, because I like the fun of it, and I like the buzz of earning money. So there'll never be a point where I'm like, I earn enough now. That just won't happen, because I enjoy it. I just like money. So, there's always like the next goal of like, what should we get next to earn this? Because then it's just fun money, isn't it? That's like, just, yeah.
Do you want to play the game, Robert Kiyosaki's game, Cash Flow?
Oh yeah, I've played it before.
Yeah, it's like every time I play that game, I always just stay in the rat race, even though you've got out. It's just like, no, keep going, keep buying, look for the bigger deals. You just want to stay in it, because that's the fun part of it, is just keep acquiring assets and keep acquiring cash flow.
Yeah, it's the thrill. Do you know what I would like? I feel like I'm at a bit of a crossroads in my life where it's a funny thing when you become comfortable. Yes, there's more I want, but that burn isn't there the way it used to be, where your back's against the wall, and I don't have that. And I miss that in some ways, but I've got more time to sort of think about what I want to do. I think I'll probably, as I get older, end up going more down, like I like doing stuff like this, like just like being interviewed, and I used to speak as well. When I did all that, the Rich Dad thing, they asked me to come back and speak for them. So before I had kids, I would then do that free 2-hour presentation that I went to all those years ago. I then became that speaker and said, this is my story. I turned up to this event, tried to sell everyone into Arbonne, and ended up being a property investor. And I don't miss being on the road all the time. I don't miss selling as well, because it was sales, quite hard sales actually. Don't miss that, but I just miss that element of entertainment almost.
Yeah. I think that's why we do the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna like go down that route as time goes on. Just need to figure it out, really.
But we'll get you up to Scotland for this. We started doing this once we came out of lockdown. We started doing in-person Scottish property podcast, network events in every city in Scotland, and we love bringing up guest speakers. So we'll definitely get you up, and you can come up to Glasgow. And Nick gets a sell-out crowd every time, so you can come up.
Stephen will fly you up in his private jet.
Stephen.
It's been lovely to talk to you, honestly. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. Your energy is infectious as well, and I'm sure the listeners will love listening to this episode.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been really lovely.
Thanks. It's brilliant. Thank you.
All right, bye.
So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Kristina. We certainly did. If you did, tag us on your social media, share on your story, and tag the Scottish Property Podcast, myself, Nick, and Kristina as well, the Good Life Property Investor.
Great stuff, guys. As always, we look forward to trying to catch you at one of our in-person networking events on the first Wednesday of each month. And we do them across the country, Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. And it's a fantastic atmosphere. We're trying to build the community, try and give some value back to people through these in-person networking events. And there's lots of relationships getting formed. And like Kristina said, that's how opportunities have come to her, through getting out and about to these actual networking events. So we hope to see you there at one very soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.